Okay, so for today's video, we are going to discuss about the chapter 5, which covers the trigonometry part. And then this is the AS syllabus. And then for A2 syllabus, there's another chapter talking about the trigonometry as well. All right, so for the AS syllabus that we are going to learn here, it is quite basic because they actually only cover the three very basic trigo function only, which is sine, cos, and tangent. And then for cotangent, cosecant, and also cotangent, all those kind of function, okay, of the trigo function will be covered only in A2. And also all the compound angle formula, all those things will be covered in A2 as well. So for AS syllabus, the trigo part is quite basic. All right, but although it is very basic, generally I still want you all to understand the details, okay, to find out all the value instead of very blur, like maybe you are not so sure how to find the correct answer for a trigo function. All right, so it will be better if you understand every single detail for trigo. Okay, then when you go to A2, then it will help you a lot. All right. Okay, so let's have a look for the trigo. What is the learning outcome for this video first? Okay, so for this video, I am going to cover something very basic only. Okay, first they actually want you to know how to sketch and use the graph of sine, cosine, and also tangent. Okay, so you need to know how to use the graph. But for me, right, I'm not going to teach you how to sketch a graph for this video. Right, so the graph part will be covered in the next one, in the next video. And for this video, I'm going to ask you to find out the exact value of sine, cosine, and tangent for the 30-degree, 45-degree, and also 60-degree, and also the related angle. So we are going to cover this one today. All right, because I realized that there are quite a number of students when they want to find the trigonometry value, right, like maybe sine 150 degree. So most of you actually press the calculator, and then actually you might not know how you get the value for sine 150. If let's say I don't want you to press calculator, how can you get the value? All right, by using some common idea or common knowledge. Right, so we'll focus more on this for this video here. Okay, all right, so let's start with some very basic intro first. Okay, so what is angle? Angle is measure of the rotation of a line about a fixed point. Okay, so as an example, if you try to draw, okay, or measure, okay, the angle from here to here, right? So this is an angle, and then when you want to measure the angle, there are actually two directions. So this one, the red color one, is anti-clockwise direction, and after that we are having the clockwise direction in green color. Okay, so you can see that when we measure from anti-clockwise in the anti-clockwise direction, so the angle we name it as a positive angle. All right, and then if we measure it in the clockwise direction, then the angle should be a negative angle. So as an example here, as what we all know, right, the whole circle is actually 360 degree. Okay, so from the positive x-axis, when I measure the angle in the anti-clockwise direction, if let's say this is 150 degree, therefore, in green color part, if I measure it, it should be 210, but because it is in clockwise direction, therefore when you write it out, we'll have negative 210. Okay, so the negative actually means the direction of the angle that you measure. All right, so please make sure that you understand and know the meaning of the negative here. Okay, so it is actually you measure it in the clockwise direction. And when you see the magnitude like 150 plus 210, you'll get 360. So the negative here itself, again, purely means what? Means that the direction that you measure the angle is in clockwise direction. Okay, so for A-level syllabus, the negative angle is very important because they are going to test you on the negative angle as well. All right, so make sure you know the meaning, okay, and you know the negative here. All right, then now let's continue to another basic idea. Okay, for any acute angle theta, what is the meaning for acute angle? All right, so when you see the word acute angle, This angle, this one means that the angle is actually between 0 until 90 degree. 0 to 90 degree, or it is from 0 to pi over 2, pi over 2 in radian. All right, either it is 0 from 90 degree or 0 to pi over 2 radian, or it is the angle in the first quadrant. All right, so when you see the word acute angle, these are the information that you should know about it. They are in the first quadrant for any acute angle, and then the value for the angle should be between 0 until 90 degree. Okay, and then there are 6 trigonometric ratio, which is sine, cos, tangent, cosecant, cotangent, and cosecant and secant. But generally here we only cover 3, which is sine theta, cos theta, and also the tangent theta. So all these are basic. So sine, I think you should know that it is referring to opposite over hypotenuse. Cos is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is opposite over adjacent. All right, so if let's say I'm having a first quadrant, okay, so you can see that this is a x and y axis, right? All right, and then we draw a triangle in the first quadrant. So please take note that for all the trigo ratio, right, when you want to draw the triangle from the in the x and y axis, in the first quadrant, the triangle will always look something like this. Okay, the base is connected to the x-axis. So you cannot tell me that, can I draw this kind of triangle and then I refer or not? Cannot. All right, so by standard, all right, so the triangle should be something like this. Okay, all right, so if let's say this is the theta, so you can see that it is a positive value because you measure it in the anti-clockwise direction. So when you look at this blue color triangle here, then generally the horizontal value here is the x, because it is x-axis, so it is actually the value of x. And then this is the value of y. So the slope line here is actually the hypotenuse up. All right, so sine theta means y over r, should be r, sorry, there's a typo here. Maybe I put it r here better. Okay, so cos theta should be x over r. And then for tangent theta, it will be y over x. Okay, so I believe that this is quite basic. All of you actually learned it before. But just that now you need to know when you want to draw a triangle in the x-axis and y-axis, in the Cartesian plane, in the first quadrant, then the triangle should look something like this. Okay, the right angle triangle. It is a standard one, right? Okay, then now let's continue further. Okay, then before that, I told you, right, there are 2 triangles, which is very important, especially for those who are using MS calculator. All right, so you need to know that what are the values for all the 30 degree, 45 degree, and 60 degree. Okay, and then you can express some of the value here in exactly insert form. Okay, and are worth remembering. All right, so just to recall again, in the previous chapter, we learned 2 important triangles here. So one of them is 45 one. So what I memorize is I always memorize tangent 45 equals to 1. So when I know that tangent 45 is equals to 1, then I draw the triangle. This is the value that I will get. The triangle, all the sides of the value. And then you will get all the value for sine 45, cos 45 easily from the triangle. Okay. And then after that, also the same thing happened for the triangle with 30 and 60 degree. Okay, so you can see there are not 30 and 60 degree here. And then again, to start drawing this triangle, I will always try to memorize this identity. This value, sine 30 equals to half. So if sine 30 equals to half means opposite is 1 over the hypotenuse, which is 2. Then from here, using the Pythagoras theorem, I can get the other side, which is square root 3. All right. Then from this triangle, also you can get all the useful information. All right, for the value with exact value like with third form. Okay, so this two triangle again, no matter you're using MS calculator or maybe ES calculator, to me, I think it is quite worth for you to memorize it. All right, so don't just ignore. Please make sure that you put it in your mind, okay, until you graduate at A level later. Yeah. All right. Then next, so just now we talked about some very basic idea on the trigo already, and then now we are going to extend it to learn. Okay, we are going to learn how to find out all the values for positive angle first. Okay, so we are going to focus on positive angle first. Okay, so first of all, maybe we need to know now, when you have different angle, right, in different quadrant, how are you going to sketch it out correctly? How are you going to sketch a triangle correctly? And then how are you going to know the details for every quadrant correctly? Okay, so first we are having the first first quadrant. So first quadrant we call as acute angle for all the angle in the first quadrant. Right, so when you want to draw it, it will look something like this. So let's say this is the first quadrant, X and Y axis. Okay, so as what I mentioned to you just now, the triangle that we are using is this one. This is the first quadrant triangle that we should know. Okay, and then this is the X, this is the Y, and this is R. Therefore, this is theta. Okay, all right, so for first quadrant, right, generally, what do we have here is we will have all the all the trigo value should be a positive value here, all positive. So that means sine theta, cos theta, tangent theta, everything will have a positive value in the first quadrant, all positive. Okay, and then the theta that we state here is theta. All right, so this one I'll let you know what is the meaning of the theta here. Okay, after that we go for the second quadrant. So for second quadrant, we name it as obtuse angle. Okay, all the angle in the second quadrant we call as obtuse angle. Okay, so when you want to draw something, when you want to draw the triangle in the second quadrant and refer to the value, generally the angle should look something like this. So this is the second quadrant. Okay, so this is the 90 degree. Again, this is R, this is negative X, this is value of Y. Negative X is because of, if you refer to the value of X on the Cartesian plane, going to the left hand, this is 0, right? So going to the left hand side, X should be a negative value. Okay, and then for the second quadrant, there's only one trigo, which is positive, sine positive. Only sine positive. If you're having cos something and also tangent something in second quadrant, then the value should be negative. Okay, but only sine is positive in the second quadrant here. Okay, excuse me. All right, then now for second quadrant, the angle, actually the triangle that we draw here, right? This is also theta. Okay, then the angle that we measure from the positive x-axis until here is 180 minus theta. Okay, so when I want to label it, I will put the label beside, like this is 180 minus theta, or maybe I will put it as pi minus theta. So pi means 180. All right, so this is what you have for second quadrant. And the triangle will look something like this. So don't draw the wrong triangle. Okay. Okay, then now we continue to third quadrant. Okay, so for third quadrant, if you want to check for the value and you want to draw the triangle in the third quadrant, so the third quadrant triangle will be something like this. Okay, all right, so maybe I draw it bigger for the triangle. Okay, so this is 90 degree, and then this is theta, negative x, negative y. All right, and this value is the R. Okay, and then when we are looking for the angle here, it is actually from positive x-axis, and we measure it until this line. So when we write it out, it should be 180 plus theta. Okay, so the label for this quadrant will be 180 plus theta, or we can write as pi plus theta. I will let you know how we do this, how we use this later, but I will want to label it here first. And then for this third quadrant, you will realize that only tangent trigo is positive here. Okay, all right. And then after that, for the last quadrant, fourth quadrant. So fourth quadrant, okay, so the triangle that we are going to use to get the value is this triangle for the fourth quadrant. Okay, so this is theta again. This is negative y, this is positive x, and then the hypotenuse is always positive 1. Okay, and then if you want to measure the angle, you measure it from the positive x-axis until here, right? So this whole angle is actually 360 minus theta. So the label for the angle in this quadrant is 360 minus theta, or we are using 2 pi minus theta. And for this quadrant, only cos trigo is positive. Alright, so all these are some of the details that we have. For every single quadrant, how are you going to draw the triangle and to refer the graph that you have and so on. Okay, alright. Okay, so now I would like to combine all the 4 quadrants here, become an overall graph, or maybe an overall diagram. Alright, so to let you see how we use it. Okay, so generally it's like that. I combine everything, all the 4 quadrants that you draw just now, I'll combine it here. Okay. Alright, so generally, if let's say you want to refer the triangle, right? So the triangle, this is the triangle for first quadrant. So of course, this is the triangle for the fourth quadrant. Then this is a triangle for the second quadrant, and this is a triangle for the third quadrant. Okay, so all these are the triangle. So you are referring to all these triangle to get the value actually. Alright, okay, so but I don't want to draw it out here so that it won't look so confusing. Okay, so I'm having 4 quadrants here. Okay, so for the first quadrant, as what I said just now, all positive, right? All positive. Second quadrant is sine positive. Third quadrant is tangent positive. Fourth quadrant is cos positive. Okay, so for the first quadrant, the label of the angle is theta. Okay, and then for the second quadrant, the label is 180 minus theta, or pi minus theta. For the third quadrant is 180 plus theta, or pi plus theta. And then for the last one, you'll be 360 minus theta, and also 2 pi minus theta. Okay, so usually I will tell my students that you can try to remember all this. Okay, and then you also, if can, you try to memorize the triangle also, because the triangle for every single quadrant, sometimes it will be quite helpful also. Okay, all right, so now I want to try to explain now how are you going to find out the value without using calculator. Okay, as an example, just now you know that sine 30 is equals to half, right? Okay, so now I want to know how can you get the value for sine 150. So what's the value for sine 150? Okay, so most of the students, okay, last time when you learn, maybe you just press calculator and then the calculator tell you, okay, the value is half. So you just get a half, right or not? All right, so now I want to try to link all this value here. So you know the basic, okay, so the 30 here, okay, so the 30 here, the value, the angle 30 is in the first quadrant, right? It is a acute angle. All right, and sometimes I will call all the acute angle here as a basic angle. And for the basic angle, it is actually the theta that I label it here. All right, so understand what I said or not for now? Okay, so for all the acute angle, I will label it as theta in my graph. I'm using it here. Okay, all right, so the first quadrant here is theta. Theta means the basic angle. All right, so if you know what is the value for the theta and also the value for the sine theta, cos theta, or tangent theta, then you can use the idea of all the quadrants to find out the value in all the different quadrants. Okay, so now I want to show you here. Okay, so as an example, if I tell you that given sine 30 is equals to half. Okay, so what is the value for sine 150? Okay, so if without using the calculator and you want to try to link the sine 150 with 30, right? How are you going to link it and get the value? So generally it's like that. If I want you to find the value for sine 150, okay, so sine 150 is in what quadrant? It is in the second quadrant. Clear or not? 30 is in the first quadrant, so 0 until 90. This one is 0 until 90. Then this one is 90 to 180. Okay, then this one is 180 to 270. Then this one is 270 to 360. Correct or not? So 150 is the angle in the second quadrant. Okay, so when 150 is in the angle of the second quadrant, so you look at the label of the angle here. I write 180 minus theta, right? So it is actually 180 minus 30. Correct or not? 150 is actually 180 minus 30. So to get the value for sine 150, generally what you need to do is you need to refer to the angle, the basic angle of 30. So you get sine 30. Right, so what is the value for sine 30? So the value for sine 30 is 1 over 2. Okay, sine 30 is 1 over 2. And then you look for the positive or negative sign from the graph. So in this quadrant, is it sign positive or sign negative? So sign is positive. Therefore, it is a plus. Okay, so it is plus 1 over 2. And usually we don't write the plus in front one. So the value itself should be a 1 over 2 here. Okay, all right. Can roughly have the idea or not? Okay, so let's say we try another one. How about if I want you to find out sine 330? Okay, so 330 belongs to which quadrant? Belongs to the fourth quadrant. Okay, so if you look at the label of the angle, it is actually sine 360 minus 30 to get 330. Therefore, when you want to get the value, you refer to the value of sine 30. So this is the basic angle. So you are referring to the value for sine 30. So what is the value for sine 30 again? It is half. All right, and after that, you look for the positive and negative sign by using the graph. Look at the graph. In the fourth quadrant, only cos is positive, right? Therefore, when you're looking for the sine value, it should be a negative in the fourth quadrant. Therefore, when you press calculator or whatsoever, you will see that the value actually is negative half. Alright, so again, this is how we use it. I don't know whether you understand it or not, but this is how we actually use it to get the value without using calculator. And then to me, this concept is important because maybe in some of the exam style question, there are some value that you actually cannot get the answer by using calculator. So you need to use all these concepts to get the value. So I will show you some example later. All right. Okay. So hopefully you already know all this now. Okay. How about if let's say I go further? Just now they already tell you that sine 30 is equals to half, right? Okay. Now maybe without telling you anything, let's say I want you to find out, can anyone tell me what is the value for tangent 225? Okay, so 225 is in what quadrant? Should be third quadrant, right? Between 180 to 270. So when you want to write out the label of the angle, it should be 180 plus 45. So your theta is 45 here. So 45 is your angle, your basic angle, right? So 180 plus 45 to get 225. Okay, so you will need to get the value for tangent 45. So just now when you have the triangle, the basic triangle that I mentioned before earlier, the value for tangent 45 is a 1. Okay, and then now I decide positive or negative. So in the third quadrant, tangent is positive, therefore the answer is 1 for tangent 225. Okay, all right. Okay, so maybe more example to let you roughly have the idea better. Okay, how about if let's say I want you to get the answer for cos. Okay, so let's say I want you to get the answer for maybe cos 240 degree. Okay, so what is the value for cos 240 degree? Again, 240 degrees in the third quadrant. All right, so I will write out as cos 180 plus 60 to get 240 degree. So the value itself should be cos 60 lah. The basic value should be cos 60. So what's the value for cos 60? Again, from the triangle that I asked you all to draw it earlier. So cos 60 should be half. Okay, so you write the half first. And after that, you look for the quadrant. So in the third quadrant, cos should be negative. Therefore, the value should be negative half. Okay, so instead of directly press the calculator, this is how you do it. Okay, all right. So I hope that you roughly have the idea how we find it already. Okay, then now we will extend it to the harder example. Okay. Okay, so maybe I set the question like this. There are some question like this in exam. Okay, so maybe they will tell you like this. Given that, okay, sine theta is equals to k, where theta is an acute angle. All right, so usually they will tell you that, okay, given that sine theta is equals to k, where theta is an acute angle. All right, so maybe they will, in the question, they will want you to find. Okay, first, maybe they want you to find tangent 180 minus theta. Okay, and then maybe for the second part, they want you to find out cos. Okay, 180 plus theta. Okay, and the third one, maybe they will want you to find out the value for sine 90 degree minus theta. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, there are some partial question. They actually ask us something like this. Okay, all right, so again, if let's say they give you sine theta equals to k, how are you going to find out all the value here? All right, without with calculator, because actually calculator won't help you anymore in this kind of question, right? So you have to know all the basic here. Okay, all right, so first we look at the first part. Okay, so first example, they want you to find out tangent 180 minus theta. Okay, so maybe for this this kind of question, you might need to draw a triangle to help you. All right, so from here, I draw a triangle because they said it is an acute angle, right? So I draw it in the first quadrant. So let's say this is theta. Okay, so they say sine theta equals to k. That means this is k, this is 1. All right, so from here, you should know that the value for this one should be 1 minus k squared. You use the Pythagoras theorem, okay, to get the value square root 1 minus k squared. So this is a triangle that we have in the first quadrant. Okay, then now, when they ask you for the value of tangent 180 minus theta, okay, so 180 minus theta belongs to which quadrant? So belongs to the second quadrant. Okay, all right. So what is the value for tangent theta? Sine theta is k. So tangent theta is what value? Okay, so for tangent theta, you will see that from this triangle down here, it is actually k over square root 1 minus k squared. Okay, all right. So k over square root 1 minus k squared, because it should be opposite over adjacent, right, for tangent. All right, so in this quadrant, second quadrant, is tangent positive or negative? It should be negative. Therefore, the value itself should be negative k over square root 1 minus k squared. Then for this one, you don't need to rationalize it because the bottom part here is the unknown, so it's very hard for you to rationalize it. So you are allowed to keep your answer like this. Okay, all right. Then how about for the second part here? If they are asking for cos 180 plus theta, if you look at 180 plus theta, it belongs to the third quadrant, right? If you compare it 180 plus theta, so this is 180 plus theta. Okay, so what is the value for cos theta? All right, so the value for cos theta is what? The value for cos theta, if you look at the triangle here again, it should be square root 1 minus k square over 1 divided by 1, correct or not? Over the hypotenuse, which is the 1. And then you look for the sign. This quadrant is in third quadrant. Cos in third quadrant should be negative also. So this will be negative as well. So this is the answer for cos 180 plus theta. Okay? All right. Then how about for the next part, part number 3? Okay, so for part number 3, if you look at the question, they are asking for 90 minus theta. But if you look at the figure that I show you here, there's nothing related to 90 minus theta. Okay, so the 90 minus theta is a bit special because for 90 minus theta, the angle is actually this one. Is actually this one. You can write as this one also. You can draw another triangle here also. Okay, so this is 90 minus theta, correct or not? Because the whole angle here is 90, so minus the theta, so this is 90 minus theta. Or you can also use this. This is also 90 minus theta, correct or not? Because in the triangle itself, how many, what is the total angle that you have? 180. So 180 minus the 90, the right angle here, minus the theta, and therefore this one left 90 minus theta. Okay, so maybe I will use this, it's easier for us to refer, no need to draw too many triangles here. Okay, so this angle itself is 90 minus theta, which is in the first quadrant as well. Okay, all right. So what is the value for sine? 90 minus theta. Okay, so if you look at this 90 minus theta, it should be opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite will be square root 1 minus k square over hypotenuse, which is 1. And then this is in the first quadrant. Therefore, the value should be positive. Okay, for all the trigo. Therefore, the value itself should be square root 1 minus k square. So why I know that it is in the first quadrant? Because the original triangle is this one. So it is acute angle also one. Because if let's say theta is acute angle, then 90 minus theta is also acute angle. Alright, but for me, because I don't want to confuse you all to draw too many triangles, therefore I will label this as 90 minus theta. Okay. Alright, so this is how we actually use all the graph like this. Okay, so maybe last time when you learn, you purely based on calculator and get the answer. But here you need to know how to apply all this idea, okay, to get the value that you have. So this is one good example. Alright, one of the good example that actually you cannot use the calculator to get the value that they want. So you have to use all the basic concepts to get the idea and value. Okay, alright. So this is what I want to cover for this video. So you will see that for all the angle here that we cover is positive angle, where we measure it in anti-clockwise direction. So in the next video, we are going to cover if I want to have negative angle, where you want to measure the angle in the clockwise direction, then how can you apply the basic idea here to get the value without using calculator? Alright, so I will stop here for this video.